The character Dr. Dolittle has always made some of the best movies. He's the man who can speak to animals. However, soon his services will not be needed anymore because technology now has the ability to allow our pets to have basic conversations with us. This new world opening up is both exciting and scary. What if our dogs don't really love us, or our cats really want us dead? On the other hand, I could be completely wrong. Everything they do might be for love. Anyway, we wanted to know more, so we did the research. Let's look at technology that makes your pets talk. But before we get into the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so you don't miss any of the new videos we post. Fact: animals already communicate with each other. Animal communication is the transfer of information from one or a group of animals, sender or senders, to one or more other animals, receiver or receivers, that affect the current or future behavior of the receivers. Information may be sent intentionally, as in the courtship display, or unintentionally, as in the transfer of scent from predator to prey. Information may be transferred to an audience of several receivers. Animal communication is a rapidly growing area of study in disciplines including animal behavior, sociology, neurology, and animal cognition. Many aspects of animal behavior, such as symbolic name use, emotional expression, learning, and sexual behavior, are being understood in new ways. When the information from the sender changes the behavior of a receiver, the information is referred to as a signal. Signaling theory predicts that for a signal to be maintained in the population, both the sender and receiver should usually receive some benefit from the interaction. Signal production by senders and the perception and subsequent response of receivers are thought to co-evolve. Signals often involve multiple mechanisms, e.g. both visual and auditory, and for a signal to be understood, the coordinated behavior of both sender and receiver require careful study. Animals send signals to communicate. These are either auditory, visual, or can be smelled. Therefore, it's possible to understand those signals. This brings us to the next part of this video: the new Dr. Dolittle. We all try to talk with animals, but very few of us do so professionally because, insane asylum. And even fewer are trying to build devices that could allow us to communicate with our pets and farm animals, but that is more plausible. Meet one person who's trying to do just that: Hans Slobodchikov, a professor emeritus at Northern Arizona University and a modern-day Dr. Dolittle. Slobodchikov is an animal behaviorist and researcher who has devoted 30 years of his career to the decoding of animal communications. And though Slobodchikov has studied those signals across different species, he focused his original research on the communications of the prairie dog. The creatures, he says, talk to each other using the most sophisticated animal language that's been decoded. The animals have word-like phonemes, combining those into sentence-like calls. They have social chatter. They can distinguish between types of predators that are nearby: dogs, coyotes, humans, and seem to have developed warnings that specify the predator's species and size and color. To arrive at those findings, Slobodchikov relied on statistical analyses of the alarm calls produced by one particular species, the Gunnarson's prairie dog. He cross-referenced the acoustic qualities of the animal's cries with the circumstances in which they were uttered, using the call's natural context as clues to their meaning. In interviews with Slobodchikov about his previous research, his upcoming investigations, and what he thinks the future will hold when it comes to animal-human communications, his responses were quite insightful. Lots of animals have communication mechanisms. Whales have sonar, apes have signs, birds have chirps, bees have odor plumes, and so on. So why study prairie dogs in particular? What do they offer that other animals don't? Slobodchikov said, "I personally think that whales and dolphins and monkeys are going to be shown to have very sophisticated languages. But we still need to design some of the experiments that will get at that. That's a problem with studying things like whale and dolphin calls, because they occur below the ocean surface where we can't really see what's going on. So we can hear their vocalizations, but we aren't really sure what their context is. And you need to have the context in order to crack the code. It's the context that allows you to decipher the meaning of the message." As for prairie dog language, I stumbled into that work by accident. I started looking at the social system of prairie dogs, and prairie dogs have a very complex social system. They have alarm calls, which they give when they see a predator, and the alarm calls turned out to be a Rosetta Stone for me, in the sense that I could actually decode what information was contained within the call. Is the technology truly viable? What if your pet dog or cat could talk instead of barking or meowing? You'd know just how much your dog loves you, and maybe how sorry Mr. Fluffy is about that mess on the carpet. We all know that's not about to happen the way we want it to soon. But recent advances in artificial intelligence and machine learning suggest the long-standing dream of being able to converse with animals in a limited fashion could become a reality. With the help of AI, scientists are learning how to translate animal vocalizations and facial expressions into something we can understand. Recent advances include an AI system that listens in on marmoset monkeys to parse the dozen calls they use to communicate with each other, and one that reads sheep's faces to determine whether an animal is in pain. Taking note of the research, an Amazon-sponsored report on future trends released last summer predicted that in 10 years, we'll have a translator for pets. Slobodchikov is the author of Chasing Dr. Dolittle, Learning the Language of Animals, and is on the vanguard of animal communication. But Slobodchikov wasn't content just to understand prairie dog. With help from a computer scientist colleague, He developed an algorithm that turns the vocalizations into English. And last year, he founded a company called Zoolingua with the goal of developing a similar tool that translates pet sounds, facial expressions, and body movements. What would animal communication mean for us? Being able to communicate with animals would mean more than just forging closer emotional ties with them. It could eliminate the guesswork in caring for animals and even save their lives. In the US alone, an estimated 3 million unwanted cats and dogs are euthanized each year, in many cases because of their poorly understood behavioral problems. But a dog that exhibits aggression could simply be afraid. And if we have the technology to understand its fears, we might be able to find a way to spare its life. You could use that information and instead of backing the dog into a corner, give the dog more space, Slobodchikov said. Similarly, AI technology could make things easier for farmers and ranchers, for instance by quickly identifying animals that are sick by detecting signs of pain in their faces. Farmers find it difficult to recognize pain in the sheep, said Dr. Krista McLennan, a lecturer in animal behavior at the University of Chester in England. She developed a scale for estimating pain levels based on the animal's facial expressions, retracted lips, folded ears, and so on. But when training people to use the scale proved difficult, Dr. Peter Robinson, a University of Cambridge professor who has developed computer systems that read human facial expressions, turned McLennan's scale into an AI algorithm. When the computer running the algorithm was shown hundreds of photos of sheep, some healthy and some not, it learned how to tell which animals were in pain and which weren't. How amazing is that? Although the technology still has some kinks to sort out, the technology could one day be commercialized. Perhaps in the form of a camera that automatically photographs sheep as they pass through a gate, Robinson said. If an animal is showing pain, the rancher would get an automatic alert. Such a system could be much faster than humans at spotting sick animals and more reliable. The reason I'm slightly optimistic is that in our research with people's faces, our automatic system was as good as the top 10% of people. Much better than the average person, Robinson said. Robinson and McLennan want to expand their work to other animals, and perhaps to indicators other than pain. We're looking at pain because that's the most significant in terms of welfare, McLennan said, but there's nothing stopping us from looking at other emotions as well. What does a happy sheep look like? What does a sad sheep look like? But there still needs to be a lot of work done. Can we ever utterly understand animals? Even if AI translators become a reality, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll ever have a heart-to-heart conversation with your pet. There are vast differences between human and animal cognition, and we're a long way from understanding the latter. One technology that may give us access to dogs' mysterious mental life is brain imaging. In humans, functional magnetic resonance imaging, fMRI, can be used to detect certain mental states by looking at brain activity. I see something like that very possible with dogs, said Dr. Gregory Burns, a neuroscientist at Emory University and the author of What It's Like to Be a Dog and Other Adventures in Animal Neuroscience. Burns has been training dogs to lie still inside brain scanners as the machine reads their brain activity. Already, his experiments have opened a window into what dogs might think or feel. For example, he's found evidence that dogs see us as friends and not just hands that feed them. Their reward system in the brain is driven as much by praise as food, Burns said. This reinforces the notion that the dog enjoys the social bond with humans by itself. Maybe someday, technology can turn us all into Dr. Doolittles, so we can make the wonderful bond between people and their pets even tighter. Soon you may be cracking jokes with your goldfish. Do they even have a sense of humor? I guess we'll find out. Anyway, let us know what you think down below in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, take care.